how much super do you need to retire? Question mark. Let's cover this, Ben, but this is pretty broad. Like, how much do you need to retire is a common question that comes up, but it needs a lot of context because we're not all the same human beings, Ben.
No, that's right. And ultimately, it depends also whether we're singles or couples and what sort of aspirations we have around what sort of lifestyle we want to lead in retirement. So if we want to have a very simple, risk-free, no adventure, not a lot of experiences, well, potentially you don't need a lot. But let's go back to the fundamentals that we've always taught on this pod, Bryce, and that is around the rule of 25 is a great way to do that. So if you're someone who is aspirational and you don't want to have a basic retirement, you want to have a retirement full of experiences and the ability to have confidence around financial security, then let's do some simple math. So if you wanted $2,000 a week, i.e. $104,000 a year, if you do the rule of 25 and you expand that out, that is a net wealth position of 2.6 million. If you want to do 3,000 a week, which is our real focus at the moment, because obviously everything's going up in price, and so that's indexation kicking in there, then technically, if you do the rule of 25, you need 3.9 million. And so I think that is important to understand. But I do want to put a caveat on this, and that is around, obviously that rule of 25 says that is the capital base of which you want to try and generate a return on that money. And ultimately doesn't necessarily mean that you have to keep that capital base. So if you're thinking in generational terms, back to Bryce's mindset minute point, if you're thinking about that, you may want to carry that on to the next generation and build that family office wealth. But if you don't, then you may not need as much, because those numbers, Bryce, 2.6 and 3.9, they feel like a lot, don't they, in terms of, for the typical household in Australia, that's like, well, that's going to take me forever. Now, I know we've got a compounding interest story later on, but that just gives you a bit of an idea in terms of what that looks like.
And folks, here's the kicker. That 2.6M or the 3.9M does not include your family home. People go, what? I can't even imagine my wealth being that much at the moment. But here's a couple of things. One, investing and compound growth will actually help towards that. Two, that's in today's dollars. So by the time you retire, if you're retiring in 30 years, that base will be more. But I guess to Ben's point, it's you're at the fork of the road. Are you someone who wants to leave a legacy, or do you want to eat down the capital? And I think the short answer for anyone on how much super do you need to retire comes down to it depends on your desired lifestyle, your expenses, and the investment returns that you can gather. So a couple of things that you need to be aware of. The question isn't should I use super for my retirement. The question is, how much do you need? And so that really comes down to a couple of things we talked about. But the last thing I want to say is once you've put your money into super and you've predetermined the end goal on how much you actually need, well, then it comes down to performance. And there's a few parameters that you can consider. One is a fully growth focus in your super. One, if you're getting closer to retirement or the pension phase, it's more about the income. So do you want it to have income focus, or do you want to have a balance? So it becomes a game of where do you allocate your super to different sectors of the market to get the returns that fit your risk profile, what you need, and going back to what Ben said at the top of the show, what sort of retirement do you actually want to have?
So I think some of the important things here, Bryce, that we want to say is that, super is an excellent vehicle. It's very tax effective. We can say that because it was structured to attract investment into it. So you've got the salary sacrifice that you can also do up to $30,000 a year. And then you can also make post contributions as well. And then there's a ceiling in terms of what that looks like over a 3-year period. So it's really important to make sure that you understand to take advantage of that if you've got that cash available. Now, the trade-off, and again, this is not advice, but the trade-off is the money is tied away until you get to that retirement period. So that's the other piece of the puzzle. So if you want to create wealth outside of that and you're tying money up inside super, you potentially don't get access to that. So, and then we also know that there are options to do 3 different types of super setups. You've obviously got your industry funds, you've got your retail funds, and you've also got self-managed super funds. as well as part of those solutions. So I think it's just important to understand how much super. Probably the bigger question here really is, how much wealth do I need to build? And this is sort of what Bryce and I have been advocating, is in the past, you can't save your way to retirement. Now, moving that contribution to 12%, if someone's starting in their sort of early 20s and having 12% over that time, that's going to have a meaningful impact and compounding return off the back of that. So in that case, you may not need more than one or two additional investments, whether that's managed funds or, in our case, we advocate for residential property that provides a nice income and also a capital appreciation over time as well. So I think it's just important to understand that you've got some choices there, don't you, Bryce?
And I guess our 2 cents worth, our non-advice 2 cents worth here is, what, to a couple of things Ben just said. We don't think super alone is enough, right? So so we think there's a combination of super, clearly for us, property investing, and then debt reduction around your principal place of residence first, and then ideally the portfolio over time. That's the combination that we've written about in the book, Ben. That's the combination that we talk about with clients who come into our building. That's the starting point for us. So the answer is, how much super do you need to retire? Well, depends on what you're after, and so use the rule of 25 as a guide. But our take is really simple. There's a combination required, and very, very clearly you should seek advice, because the compounding machine, which we're going to talk to in another question shortly, the earlier you can start, the better. So the earlier that you actually contemplate this question, how much super do I actually need to retire? And we're shouting out to you, millennials. We're shouting out to anyone who's 30 or under where you think it's too far away. I promise you it's important. It'll come quick. And the decisions you make around this vehicle now will make a difference around when you actually do retire.